here we go with what I think is the first step in putting the control arms on, and that is running a chase down these threads, because there's 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of paint on there. And this is what's called a rethreader. It's not a die, it's a rethreader, and all it'll do is take the paint off. Do that again. And put a little anti-seize on there. Now, as far as the lower bolts go, I've tumbled these bolts. These are the original bolts, but they're in really nice shape. So we're going to use them to bolt the lower control arms on. Alright, it's time to try to slide this control arm in here. And there's a little peg right here that fits into a recess in the control arm. And if the control arm has been assembled correctly, you can turn this shaft, even though these bolts are torqued to spec. And the object is to line the hole up with a peg. And I'm not having much luck here. Now what should happen is this peg should fall into that hole. That's not it. There it is. Okay. So, let's do this. That's in. And that'll stay in. Alright, good deal. Now we got to slip the U-bolts in. Put a little anti-seize on the bolt. Put a knot on there. Put some anti-seize on there. And we got one done. Let's do the other one. Take the second U-bolt. And slip it up in there, put a nut on there, hold it from falling through, anti-seize it, okay. I'll take that nut and put it in the other one, and anti-seize that one. That down. Okay. We'll snug these up. Making sure to do it evenly. Okay. Get the front one. And now we'll torque it to spec. So the book says 30 to 40 foot-pounds. So we'll start out at 30. And go to 40. and the lower control arm is installed. Time to put the upper arm on, and that's simple enough. Don't forget the hardware. And I'm going to put it on with no alignment in it because we don't know what the heck it was at. So we'll just eyeball it when it comes time to go down the road. And I have run a rethreader on these threads. So, and just on the threads of the studs, not in the nuts, because the nuts are lock nuts. All right, now before we go too far, we have to put the upper bumper in. And I have searched everywhere on the internet. I can't find anything that says how to do that. I'm going to show you how I did it. So here's a good tip for anybody that's watching this video. I couldn't find anywhere on the internet how to install this upper bushing end. And what I finally ended up doing was taking a little glass cleaner and spraying it up and putting it in there. Then grabbing a hold of it with a pair of vice grips. And wrap a glove around a piece of wood. And use it as a lever to pull that upper bump stop through. And just as simple as that, that upper bump stop is installed. And I'll tell you what, I tried everything. I tried heat, I tried oil, I didn't know if I was going to pull the top off or not, and it popped right in. Just as simple as that. That completes the upper and lower front control arm install. The next step will be to put the spindle on and get the spring compressed and get the spring in there and attach the lower control arm to the spindle. The next step, I think, is to put the spindles in. And the reason I want to put the spindles in is because the spindle is what connects the upper control arm to the lower control arm, so that when you put the spring in, it's contained. Now, the way POL, or Performance Online, and I'm not sponsoring them, it's just where I happen to get it from. I didn't get any deal or anything. Shipped it, the kit was completely assembled. The spindle, the rotor, and the caliper are all mounted together. And that makes sense from a point of shipping, but from a point of trying to put it on the car, I think you have to take it apart. And it's a good thing I did too, because there's no grease in the bearings, and I don't know why it was shipped that way, but it's a good thing to look for. See, and there's no cotter pin either. All right, here we go. This thing must weigh 100 pounds. Now, there's just no way I could hold that up and put it on the upper ball joint. So it's simple enough to take it apart. One of the good features about disc brakes. Take the two pins out, slide the caliper off, turn the whole thing right side up, take the castle nut off, lift the rotor off, and that's half the weight right there. You know, I just realized, is there a seal? There's no seal on the back of that. Let me check that. No seal. I have to buy seals. Huh. Okay. That's a good thing to find out. Now we have just the spindle, and now this is manageable. So let's go bolt it onto the upper control arm. Let's put some anti-seize on that. And that's the threads, not the spline. We got the fire department. Yeah, I would never have been able to do that with all that other stuff on there, and only took, what, 5 minutes to take it apart. So there. Now next is springs. Let's see if we can find them. Save the cotter pin. We're now going to attempt to put the front spring in without any weight in the chassis. And I think I have a plan on how to do that. So let's try it. Now this tail wants to go in the pocket in the lower control arm, so make sure you get the tail into the pocket right above the hole. And I find that you feed the top in first. Okay, and now we got to jack it up a little bit to get it to set into the pocket on top of the frame here. Too much. Okay, that's in the pocket. Now we can only go so far until we actually jack the chassis up. So that's not going to help us in compressing the spring. And we're just touching the ball joint now. So we'll try to pull this control arm up with a ratchet strap. Are we up far enough? Nope. Gotta go another ½ inch or so. Let's put a strap on the other side. Okay, guys, I have to apologize. The camera ran out of battery right at the crucial point. That's the second time that's happened to me. I didn't know the camera was dead and I finished up the project. So what I'm going to have to do is tell you what I did and show it to you. The very last thing you saw was me putting a second strap on here, and that really didn't make any difference. And probably that's physics, you know. The spring only sees so much force, regardless of how many straps. You can put 10 straps on there, pulled to this tightening, and this thing's only going to move to the tightness of the tightest strap. So the second strap really didn't help. other than what it did is it pulled the first strap from being straight like that. So it put more tension on the first strap, and it was just enough to get the castle nut started. And once I got the castle nut, I took a 15/16 wrench by hand and I tightened it down to a point where I had most of the stud through the nut. And then I took an impact gun and I ran it down to a point where the notch in the castle nut lined up with a hole in the stud for the cotter pin. And that completed the task. That's how close we were. I really apologize. So this completes the install of the upper, lower control arms, the spindle, and the spring. And we did install the spring with no weight in the chassis. So that concludes this video. There'll be more.